Hello friends, it's your favorite neighborhood nerd Simone, and I want to do another ink comparison today. Besides Lamy Sepia that I introduced to you a couple weeks ago on this spread right here, I will link the video if you haven't seen it up in the cards above. I also purchased Lamy Petrol, a limited edition ink for 2025. I don't know how limited it is because you can also still get the limited edition Pink Cliff from Lamy. That came out last year in 2024. Maybe it's one of those while supplies lasts and they have a lot of supply, I don't know. But I thought I'd pull out some of the inks that look similar, that have a similar tone, and put them on this spread and share them with you. I also looked up what each ink costs and determined the cost per milliliter, because I think sometimes that's something, especially when we were like, oh my gosh, I need this ink in my collection. Maybe that's another aspect that we should consider before jumping on the bandwagon. Now, Lamy inks are extremely affordable. Here is the bottle. So I actually think you can never really go wrong with a Lamy ink if you like the color. But there are other brands where you maybe possibly could think one more time before you buy. Also, so I decided to go with the layout that I showed you in the sepia video, but I am really intrigued to do some kind of bracket with inks that looks extremely similar in my bottled collection only. And I would love to hear your thoughts on that, because that was the original plan of this video. However, I don't know, I wasn't as excited about actually sharing it than I was about the idea. And so I thought maybe I just haven't really thought about it enough to know how I wanted to have it play out, or I like the idea more than actually doing it. But I thought I would ask you if you're interested in it and how would you actually go about it. Yeah, that's all. Thank you so much. Let's go and dig deep. I will just quickly talk about my supplies. I have this swink right here. This is a piece of acrylic resin that was left over from a fountain pen making. So this is a chopped off blank. And my friend Wendy Sue, Fountain Pen News, she's also here on YouTube, made me this and gifted it to me. And I really love this specific one. Then I am using my Kakimori brass dip nib on a Tachikawa nib holder, as well as just a regular pipette. And the paper that I'm using is Sanzen Tomoe River paper. This one is the blank Hobonichi paper, and it works surprisingly well. So the first ink obviously is Lamy Petrol. I'm gonna put some ink right over here. And I have not planned this out well enough. So let me grab my water and put it right here so I can clean out my pipette while I'm doing this. So this is what I want to compare each of the inks to. I'm going to make a really big swatch for Lamy Petrol and then smaller swatches over here. It is a really dark blue ink, blue-green, teal leaning, and I thought from the swatch cards that I have here, it would actually look very, very similar to Diamine Twilight, but we can check that out in a minute. So let me check. Do I want to put this? I am having my teeny tiny swatch book over here. I'm not sure if I want to put this on blue and blue-green, but I think I want to put it on blue and blue-green, even though it clearly is more of a blue-green than a green, than a blue. But I also put some blue-greens over here, and so here is, this sucks, this sucks. I just need a tiny sliver of ink. When I swatched it at first, I'll show you the thing here on the Subame OK Fools paper. It looked almost black and it seemed to be very wet. So I'm very interested to see how it performs now. I need one of those. It definitely comes off the brass nib very easily. And I only dipped it a tiny bit, and it still is going quite strong. Let's see if we can get a huge amount of line variation. As far as I have heard, this is a re-release of an ink that came out several years ago. I was not into fountain pens at that time, so I don't know if this compares, how it compares to the ink that was released back then. All of the inks that I have checked the prices on were on the Van Ness website. All the inks are available on there. So if you wanted all 5 of them, then that would be the place to go. So the ink bottle is 50 milliliter, and you get it for US dollars, everything here, 12. So the cost per milliliter would be now we're almost out, 0.24 per milliliter. Alrighty. What do you think? How do you like this color? I'm very drawn towards these almost blacks right now. I would love to have a variety of almost black inks in my pens with some other colors, but this is definitely an ink that I like a lot right now. So I am going to put the next 4 inks. I only picked 4 on this side of the paper, but let's go and do that. The next ink that I have here is Diamine Twilight, and this looks very blue, and here it almost looks gray. On my swatch card here, it is Lamy Petrol is a little bit more green leaning, where this is a little bit more blue-black, but on camera, as far as I can see, it's almost the exact same. Let me see if I can turn on the light. Maybe there will be some slight differences to be seen. Does this make a difference? I don't know. What do you think? Should I leave it on? Wow, here's the mic. I'm such a pro at this. This is, oh my gosh, this is basically not visible that there is green in here. I knew that this is going to probably be really bad because these blue-greens and blues and, well, teals and stuff, they're really hard to capture on camera. So I'm not surprised, but also I am surprised. So Next ink is Diamond Twilight. I'm looking for my swink. Here we go. Whoa. Yeah, this is blue black. This is teal black, maybe. Yep. I'm curious to hear what you think about the inks that I picked. They're not very close, I'm thinking right now. Let me put a board right behind here. So if it bleeds through, it doesn't go onto the next page. And then maybe we can move this clip over here as well. I did leave a page empty, and you don't even know how much willpower it took to skip this spread. But yeah, just an aside. One of the many tangents that were going on today. So from this image here, they looked so much closer than they are in real life. I do think, though, that also the ink properties of both of those inks are very different. I have had this ink in a pen before, and it felt very dry to me, which I was very surprised because I didn't think that these types of colors would be dry. But this one surprised me, and it felt dry. It definitely doesn't fall off the nib as willingly as Lamy Petrol. That could be a thing that you need to be mindful of. Let me write the name of the ink, Twilight. This comes in 30 milliliter bottles as well as 80 milliliter bottles. The 30 milliliter bottle is $8. The 80 milliliter bottle is 17, and that makes it more expensive in the 30 milliliter bottle than the Lamy Petrol, and less expensive in the 80 milliliter bottle. If you only have pens that write very, very wet, dump ink onto the page, then you might not be very happy with this ink because it will gush onto your paper. At least from how it appears to behave with the brass dip nib. Now, that is not necessarily a really hard and fast rule. The brass dip nib always puts down more ink than a fountain pen nib would. However, it does behave differently between inks. And so it does, to me, especially since I've been using this for so long now, I can gauge a little bit how wet an ink will behave in a pen by how easily it falls off the nib. So here we go. Next ink that I have is Pilot Iroshizuku Tsukiyo. Whoops, there we go. I received my bottle not full. It was passed along to me, but I have used it a little bit. So this is one of those inks that is actually going down and not just appearing to not be used ever. So let's, oh my gosh, look how blue this is compared to this is yeah, I think teal black is the best description of this ink actually. maybe I picked the completely wrong color family of inks to compare, because I don't feel I have like many matches here. I'm getting even bluer with the inks that are coming next. Oh, this is also quite wet. I mean, I dipped it in right just before. This one is Pilot Iroshizuku Tsukiyo. And at Venice, it currently is sold for 50 milliliters for $25.60, and it says that it is reduced from 32, and if you buy it at the sale price, you would get to a milliliter price of 51 cents per milliliter, as to the original price of 64 cents per milliliter. These inks are quite expensive. However, I've not had one Pilot Iroshizuku ink that behaved badly. So that is also something to keep in mind. I did stock up on quite a few Pilot Iroshizuku inks. But I am leaning more and more to getting some of those staples favorites from Diamine, because you can't beat the price. They behave so nicely all the time. Or even, Lamy inks, I have not had anything bad happen with them. They stayed true to color however long I've had them so far. That's not something that all inks can call or say about themselves. Next one is another really dark ink. This is Dominant Industry Pearl Series Winter Night. And this is even further removed from this blue, teal black ink. This is a very ultramarine blue with silvery shimmer. I really like it. I just had it in a pen for a while and used it quite often. However, it's not, oh no, I'm not the one that is able to create non-messy spreads. That's totally not who I am. So we will just have to put up with my messiness, I guess. Well, maybe these are not necessarily the same color, but the same darkness. The Twilight as well as the Dominant Industry Winter Night are very dark, almost blacks. With the shimmer, that's going against that, but I just really like this ink, and I thought, you know what? You need to look at this too. So what other colors would you compare Lamy Petrol to? Because if I have them, maybe I can compare them, because I seem like, not saying that I'm totally missed the mark here, but it kind of. And I wonder what other colors you would compare Lamy Petrol to. I don't think I have them. The one that comes to mind right now is, let me check if I have Industry Winter Night. This is the most expensive ink, I believe, in this whole, in this whole lineup. It comes in a 25 milliliter ink bottle. The ink costs $19.95 at Van Ness. Okay, let's try to make it a 9 and then a 5. So the price per milliliter is 80 cents. That's a lot. But, this is a super cool plug. Just know that I do not get any kickback from you using my code on Van Ness. And if you've used it already, maybe you can check out a different person's code. I know that, again, Wendy Sue has a code. Lorelei has a code with Van Ness. There's quite a few people that have codes now with Van Ness, and you know, it's nice to save a little bit of money on expensive ink. So you should use the code at Van Ness and get all of these inks. So if you had to pick one of them, which one would you choose? Like, money is not a problem. Just go by if you could only keep or acquire one of these, which one would it be? Posed many questions, so I'd love to hear all of your responses and replies in the comments down below. And then we will go through my cards after I'm done with this, because man, this is blue, this is green. That's weird. So the other ink that I have to compare, this is one that was one of my, I really loved this when I used it. Again, as a similar ink to black, it's not black, and it's also not one of those, I feel like, boring school blues that I grew up with and that I still have nightmares about. No, that's not true. This is on Van Ness's website. It says it's Lamy Pink Cliff. I have heard that this ink is actually only called Cliff. I do not know what is the actual truth. I will continue calling it Pink Cliff because that's what I put on my thingamajig right here. So let's maybe color this right away. And yeah, they're both, these two are actually both very similar to each other in the sense that they're almost blacks, but not. It is, again, more of an ultramarine blue like Dominant Industry. This one is definitely more cyan leaning. This one is a blue-black that does have, now that it's dry, it does have some green undertones. Not as many as Lamy Petrol for sure, but it is definitely not an ultramarine blue. But it's also not close to Tsukio. So, last one. Here you go. And as you can see, like the Lamy Petrol, it comes off very easily off the nib. It's quite wet. I had it in a Sailor medium fine and it just gushed ink onto the paper. This one is Lamy. $20.24, and just as the Lamy Petrol, it comes in a 50 milliliter bottle, goes for $12, and that's the standard price. They do not jack up the price on these bottles, even though they are calling them limited editions, which I think is a really nice trait. All right, so there we go. Comparing Lamy Petrol, obviously comparing Lamy Petrol to colors that don't have anything to do with Lamy Petrol. I do want to go through that one stack. No, none of these look even remotely close. I'm looking for, where is Chennai, for instance, and Teranishi Gentle Green. Those here. Maybe I couldn't find them because this was on top. So should I do another video with those inks? Let's check. Okay, so if I'm looking at Krishna Inks Chennai, and it seems like you can't really see this, there is more yellow, so more green in this ink than Lamy Petrol. It's much more green. Sailor Pancho ink is not. Diamond Evergreen is very green. Haunted Forest is more green, but it is definitely also one of those almost black inks. I could totally add this to this. We are inks that are almost blacks. Maybe I should do a video about here are all the inks that are almost black. Teranishi Guitar Gentle Green. On this paper, and it changes between several different hues on all of the different papers, is very different than Lamy Petrol. And then the last one that we have is Lierre Sauvage by Urbain, which is completely different. So maybe the only one that could work in this is Haunted Forest by Kiwi Inks. And if we put those two cards next to each other, yeah, especially in the writing, it seems to be very similar. So maybe that could have been on here as well. Yeah, I really like this idea of sharing almost black inks. So that is, I guess that's the next one that I'll do. And I'll pull the same inks that I just shared, but also add some others that I really love for this really dark hue that is not black. But let me know. Oh, you know what I just thought about? I was going to, well, first of all, add the name of the ink onto this paper, but I did swatch quite a few blue-green inks over the past year since I started this. And so maybe we can find one that is similar on this paper. The difference between this and this is that these are all inks that I have in bottles. These are all inks that I have in bottles or had or have in samples, so they might not still be in my collection. I have decided that I am not the ink library that I would love to be. YouTube can only go this far, and so I've decided that I am not keeping inks just to be able to share them on YouTube videos over and over again. So that's why maybe an ink here might be the perfect match for Lamy Petrol, but I don't have it any longer. I noticed that I'm not the right person for this. It starts to weigh on me. Petrol by Lamy, because I just feel too overwhelmed by all of those samples. So there might be other content creators out there that can totally give you all the samples and all the swatches, compare every single ink for you, but I might not be that right person. So, however, this is close. So Lamy Petrol leans very blue when I look at this piece of paper here. I could see it compared to Tachia Sabi Midori. Tachia Sabi Midori has more sheen, and I think it is more complex in its looks. It's also way more expensive than Lamy Petrol. Some people do not enjoy the high sheen of Tachia Sabi Midori, so this could be a great alternative. Then what else do I have here that is close? Well, in the swatch where it's very saturated, Lennon Toolbar Deep Mountain could be similar. However, when I have this in a pen, it's never this dark. So I would not use this as a comparable ink to substitute Lamy Petrol for. Also, because Lamy Petrol is so affordable, you basically won't find any inks that are cheaper. Well, maybe diamine, but that's about it. So then we have one that I think is similar, is Sailor Hankyu Hana Asagi. This one is an ink that you can only get, I think, at Hankyu, which is some kind of Japanese store. My friend Amy sent me a lot of samples after she returned from her Japan trip, maybe 2 years ago. I don't even know. All of those inks here are more green or lighter. This is where I struggle. I can't, I think these are more, these are definitely lighter, but also there's more blue in them maybe. Kononuma, Sailor Ink Inking Kononuma is more green. Van Diemen's Mandarin Duck Knape is definitely more sheening and also more green. Diamine Aurora Borealis is lighter. And that's about it. As I said, Teranishi Guitar Gentle Green, here it is on original Tomoe River paper, has more sheen. So let's see if there's any blue inks that could, no. Tachiya Sabi Midori. Maybe Urbain Vert de Gris. Nah. I only think that's because of the swatch. But yeah, so I think if you've been on the fence, you should totally get a bottle of Lamy Petrol. It definitely fills a hole in my collection. And I would love to hear how you like it. And yeah, leave responses to all the questions that I asked in the comments down below. I hope to see you again soon. Until next time, bye.